All right, so I got a call during that last episode, so I had to cut it short. But so now in this case, like I said, I could probably extend this out to maybe another 8 furnaces before these belts start getting start running, dry. But again, if I have multiple rows here of miners, I would have multiple belts of ore. So you could set up one belt here, or one smelting facility here, another smelting facility here, here, here. You can just keep going down. You'd have tons. And so you could have like 5, 6 belts of just pure iron plates, and then maybe divert one off to making steel. So I'm going to do a little bit of a ghetto setup. And actually, you know what? I totally forgot that I don't have any coal for my... I'm guessing this is probably my smelter, or my boilers. Yep. Boilers are out of fuel. Okay, well, it's a good thing I got a bunch of... I need to create... You know what? Let's do that now. So 5. We are going to quickly make a belt of coal for my boilers here. And so I'm just going to do a splitter here, because I mean the thing is I want to be producing much more coal than I really actually need here, just this one belt. So I'm going to create a splitter right here. Whoops. And I need more belts. Ooh. Well, this is not good. I don't have any belts here, so I'm gonna have to make some. Well, that's not fun. Alright. So basically coal's gonna be running here up to these boilers, and then I don't have to worry about ever making sure that they're full again. And I am like severely out of transport belts here. Alright, so that 20 is not going to be enough. So in the meantime, we got power again. So I'm going to create a little bit of a ghetto setup. So like I said, you could have like 6 or 7 or 8 belts of just all producing pure iron plates. And you could do the same exact setup for copper. Same exact setup. And so I'm going to do a little bit of a ghetto setup here though. I am going to create just a couple of things that are making steel, because, steel is important. So now to make steel, it's almost kind of the same process as creating iron, except of iron ore, your input is iron plates, and your output is steel. So... Actually, I don't have an output for him. Actually, I do. So, gotta get him power first. There we go. So now we got some power, and they're creating steel bars. And then we'll just set the output to be right here. It's a little bit of a ghetto setup. I mean, typically what you would do is you'd have a setup like this right here. You'd have a setup like this right here. For steel. Instead of iron ore being fed in here, you would have iron plates being fed into here. So you'd have a very similar setup here. Okay, so and these are going to pull out the iron or the steel, and then I need another fast inserter which requires some iron ore or iron plates. And let's go and build some belts while we're at it. Alright, and I've got all this copper coal, so just go ahead and get these filled up with coal. I guess they are filled up with coal. Are they? No, I'm not close enough. Yeah. Alright, so might as well make use of... At this point, I'm just dumping inventory. I mean, because they're getting coal automatically through the belts, but I'm just dumping my inventory. Create some space. Same thing with all this iron ore. Because there's nothing I'm really going to do with this iron ore, right? It has to be smelted to be used. So... just getting it out of my inventory. See, much cleaner now. Alright, so now we've got a situation where we are creating And what I'm going to do here is just create a little guy here, and with a chest, and he needs power. And he's just going to take all this excess and put it in here. So now I've got a constant supply of ore. All I have to do is just come down here and boom, hit that. And then we're going to have another little guy here. And I need more iron ore. Who's just going to be collecting the steel and putting it here. So now I have a constant source of steel. And you would do the same thing for copper, right? And again, this video series is just really explaining the mechanics. So now you understand kind of how you can create belt systems that feed into something that creates, you know, your basic resources like your iron plates, your steel plates, stuff like that. And actually, I need to go ahead and get this up here for my boilers. Okay, so now my boilers are automatically going to be getting... Oh wait, these guys need power too. Alright, so now my boilers are automatically going to be powered. Now, remember, we were having to come up here and automatically fill these up with copper, right? And with steel, right? Annoyingly enough. So the other idea is that instead of me having to transport copper into these chests here, I could just have a belt of copper. You know, I'd have a smelting setup like I have below, and then I would have a belt of that copper producing, just transporting copper up here, and these things would just grab the copper. So the copper would get smelted in a furnace setup like this, down here. Right, you could set it up like right here. That'd actually be a good place for you. You'd set up a copper smelting station right here after you put up an electric miners. And then you would have iron being produced. You can just route the iron. You'd have multiple irons and multiple coppers. Basically, you would build as much as you can because you want all of this here covered with electric drills. You want all this covered here with electric drills. You want all of this covered with electric drills. And that would take quite a while. But if you do that, then you just can mass produce iron plates and copper plates. And you'll have multiple belts of those. And then you could route those belts to facilities like this here. To like little facilities you have here where it's running a belt of just copper plates, and these little machines, these little inserters will just grab the copper plates and run steel up here, and it would just grab the steel to make the gears to do this. Same thing with your transport belts. You can have a belt of steel running up here, and it would create those. And same thing with the science. You would have a belt of copper and steel to create, you know, to supply these automatically, so you don't have to keep refilling up these chests. I was doing it as a placeholder. But you really want the belts coming from your foundries, which is what I would call, which actually look at the map. So this is where our foundry is. You would have your foundries supplying all the belts, or supplying all the copper and iron and steel, instead of me having to manually running back and forth between these two to refill up these little factories here. Now, so you kind of understand the idea of, you know, the scaling in the game, the scaling your or getting your production going, right? And your ultimate goal is to create, you know, green science. So in this case, you would need an inserter and a transport belt, because that's really your next step, right? Is to create green science, so that way you can get, you know, advanced. So you can get steel furnaces, you can get the red belts, which are faster belts, solar panels, oil production. Stuff like that, and you need green science, and you can create them manually. Kind of a pain in the butt. They take almost 10 seconds, as you can see there. They require a transport belt and inserter. So you would create a system like this that would put transport belts into a belt, which then and then you would have another little production facility that would create the inserters. So you would need circuits, and actually you would need this kind of similar setup here to create your circuits, and then you would need iron gear wheels and iron plates, kind of like how we have here. So you'd have that, but again, you'd have more belts feeding you would have iron belts and copper belts feeding these assembly machines to do all that construction for you, and then it would be putting out green science onto a belt, which then inserters can take off that belt and put into your labs for you, which I need to get another research going. So, and then you would have a belt of red science and a belt of green science. So it's a lot of work, and then you realize that as you go, you're going to need more and more and more. So this is where blueprints become super handy, and this is what I said I was going to talk about. So if you press the B button, you're going to take brought to the screen right here, and you can create a new blueprint, right? You can create it. You can right-click. You create it, and then you can just drag a circle, and then it basically saves a copy of that. So it would save this, I hit OK, and then I could just place as many of these as I want. And it gives me just a ghost image, so I know what I need to build, right? So that way it creates a template, if you will, so I have exactly everything I need to construct. And I can look down here, and it would tell me I need 8 fast inserters, 4 assembly machines, 3 iron chests, and 2 electric poles. So it kind of tells you everything you need. So if you find a really good setup that you made, you can create a blueprint to do that. Or there's a fantastic website. Let me see if I can find it here. FactorioPrints.com. Yeah, come on. FactorioPrints.com. So what I do is I usually go to most favorited here. And is it going to load? Oh, this is the top. Okay, so, and you have things like all the inserters, right? And what you could do is just hit copy to clipboard. You go into Factorio, press the B button, import string, Control V to paste it, import. And then you now have that blueprint. And you can see here, and unfortunately it's dark, but this right here gives you all the template to make every inserter. You can see here it's making yellow inserters here, it's making red and blue inserters here, and it's making purple inserters. It's not making white ones. I don't use this blueprint, but it makes all the inserters for you, right? So that's super handy. But then you also have what's called like tileable or tiled blueprints. So I'll give you an example. No, that's not a good one. So yeah, I've got blueprints for sciences too. So like here's a tileable, here we go, tileable science. So here's a tileable science one, right? And I wish it wasn't dark right now. So you can set it here. And so you can see here's all the red science, and these are the belts that feed in stuff. And then what I can do is just take the blueprint again and put another one right there, and then another one, and then another one. So now I'm producing a ton of red science, right? And all I need to do is just feed in some steel or some iron here and some copper here, and it will flow all the way down and produce all that science, and it outputs right into this single belt right here. So I'd have one belt of just full of red science. And I have also for green science, very similar. You just keep tiling it. And as long as you feed it the right resources after you build it, it will output all that science. And so you can see here, it creates the inserter. Well, that's what we were talking about earlier with green science. It needs an inserter and it needs a transport belt. And so it creates those, and then it creates, then it uses them to make the green science. And so, and you can just keep layering this over and over and over again, as many times as you need. Now, again, you have to worry about, do you have enough resources being generated to support that, right? So you may need way more iron for as many, for what is this, like 4, yeah, this is 4 factories worth, or 3 factories worth of, I've got 3 rows of green science being generated here. I probably would need a lot more iron and copper than I'm producing right now, because it's just, this is for mass production. So it gives you an idea of how much you need to scale. And so, and there's also blueprints for Roboport production. Let's see, Roboport production furnaces. This is actually a good one here, and I got this off this website. This is good. And this is a good example right here of a really long foundry, and I would do maybe 3 or 4 of these starting off, to produce my iron, produce my copper, and my steel. Solar panel farms, which, you're going to need a lot of these later, because eventually the smelters, or the steam engines, are not going to be enough. Solar panels, super helpful. And then there's the dreaded oil production, which is super complex. That would require another video on its own. And eventually you're going to get to the point to where these resources you have just right here are not going to be enough. You're going to need to expand all the way out here, right? I mean, right now there's only a little bit of the map explored because, I've only walked a little bit. You have to go out and explore to find new resources, right? And then that's when you actually get into the whole, let's see, research, train system. Because you may have, there could be a gigantic iron patch up here, like huge. You would create all your miners, you would smelt it all there, and then you transport all your iron plates down here. Because I can guarantee you 2 things. This iron patch here is not going to last forever. And even if it did, you'd still need more iron than what this one patch does. You'd have this little patch here, which you could probably do this with all belts. It's not too far away, but the further away you get, and the way Factorio works is that patches of resources get way more richer as the further you go out. So there's going to be way up here, could be iron patches that are just, 20, 30 million pieces of iron. But you can't have a belt running all the way down here. That's where you start building trains. And trains, again, is also very complex. I will say, Factorio does have a good tutorial on trains. I don't know if they have a tutorial on oil, but oil production is my least favorite part of the game, to be honest. So that's the basic mechanics. I mean, from what I've showed you here, you know enough to reach the end game and to launch a rocket into space, because that's the whole point of the game, is to do that. And as you expand, you'll have to create red sciences, yellow sciences, purple sciences that will require a lot more sciences. It will require a lot of stuff. I mean, there's going to be sciences that require red circuits and green circuits, and you're going to have whole entire sections of your base just dedicated to creating green circuits, and the whole section of your base dedicated to creating red circuits. So, I mean, you literally will have a whole part of your screen that's just nothing but green circuit or nothing but red circuit production. So, yeah, that's the basic mechanics. And that's pretty much all you need to know to really expand out. And, I mean, I could create a full guide that takes you to the very end, but that kind of ruins the fun of experimenting and trying to find out everything. But yeah, that's pretty much everything there is to know. And there are more advanced things, but again, that's one of those things, like, as you play, you kind of discover them, and that's kind of the fun of it too. So, but anyways, hope this is good. If you have any questions, just let me know.